It's time once again for the Kaufman Corner podcast with you, as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. My name is Soren Petro. As we talk Royals baseball here a little bit early, if you're catching us via the podcast, we normally stream 9 p.m. on a Sunday. Going early, if you're wondering why we haven't talked about the Sunday game and you're catching us on the podcast. So we're going a little bit early today, a little 10 a Central start here for the Kaufman Corner podcast, still covering all the Royals baseball you could want. Was it all strength of schedule, or are the Royals legitimately playing better baseball? Can the pitching hold up all season long with so little margin for error? How long can the Royals live without Cole Ragans and still be a playoff team? 1 month in, do we have any clarity on who should be playing second, third, left, right? The Bobby Witt hitting streak, it's at 18 and counting. How long can it last? How much do we believe in Drew Waters? Has Jack Caglianone's ETA changed? You know, his position's changed. Has that changed his ETA? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it, get with Dave and he'll have you covered. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. And now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
All right. Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. How about it, Rany? The Royals are playing better baseball. Is this just about the schedule softening up? We mentioned they had 16 straight games against teams 500 or worse. The Astros played themselves up, so they came into Kansas City as an above 500 team. As we sit here and record here on a Sunday morning, they've taken the first 2 out of 3 against the Astros, but they're on a heater, Rany. As things are looking up. They handled those dastardly Colorado Rockies. They grabbed the last one of the road trip. What do you think? Better just schedule driven, or are they coming around and rounding into form?
Yeah, I'd like to say they're getting better. But most pieces of evidence point to the fact that, yeah, the schedule really does make a difference because they finally broke their streak of scoring 4 runs or fewer at 17 games in a row, one of the longest streaks of any team this century, by scoring 7 and 6 in a doubleheader against the freaking Rockies. They've gone back to scoring 2 runs a game each of the last 2 games, but they won them both because the form. This is 2024 on steroids. I mean, it's the same formula that they had last year, but even more extreme. The offense really has a very strong case of being labeled the worst in baseball. All right. They are second worst in the major leagues in runs scored per game. They are 4th worst in batting average, which is astonishing when you consider not just the team's focus on contact, but also the ballpark is a really good ballpark for hitting for average. They are, I believe, 3rd worst in walks. Okay. That's par for the course for the Royals. They're dead last in home runs. They have 13 as a team. Vinny Pasquantino just took the team lead by himself with his 3rd yesterday. Eugenio Suarez hit 4 by himself in one day yesterday. So Eugenio Suarez in one game has more runs than any Royals hit all season. Like, the offense is just awful, but they got the Colorado Rockies at the perfect time, which I guess when it's the Colorado Rockies, that means any time is the perfect time.
The perfect time is when you see them on your schedule.
Exactly. But they took advantage of it. What do you say? Good teams keep bad teams losing? To me, the turning point in this streak is not just, we talked about it last week. I was hoping that the win against the Tigers in the final game of the road trip against Tarek Skubal where they were down a run with 6 outs to go might spark them. And I think it did. But actually, the next game where they blew a 2-0 lead in the 9th inning with 2 outs and nobody on base, and Carlos Estevez walks the bases loaded and then gives up a 3-run double. Like, is there a more Royals-y way to lose, to just, not just lose a game, but really just have all the momentum go out of a season in April? That's exactly the kind of game they've had seemingly every other year for the last 20 years. But I remember thinking to myself, you know what? They're still playing the Rockies. And as much as the Royals are Royalsing, the Rockies can Rockies even harder than the Royals can Royals. And sure enough, they tied the game in the bottom of the inning, won it in extras. And that, to me, really sparked everything. Then the next game they go out there, Cole Ragans has to come out after 3 innings with a pulled groin. And they were able to cobble together 6 innings in the first game of a doubleheader, right, out of the bullpen, win the next game, and then desperately needing Seth Lugo to eat some innings, he goes out there and throws not just 7, they throw him out there for the 8th inning, and he was starting to give up some rockets, but they got out of it. Absolutely what this team needed. They are resilient. You have to give this team credit. To me, the unsung hero of this last week is Matt Quatraro. Because once again, this team has shown an ability when it looks like they're just back to being the same old Royals. They come back and find a way to start winning again. So they're not as good as this streak, obviously, and I'm still very concerned that the offense is never going to come around. But they've come through, a really tough stretch with a horrible offense, and they're 500. Kudos to them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do believe that it is schedule driven, but I do believe that they can pitch. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they definitively a playoff team? Hey, they're back, baby. Let's start buying our October tickets. No. And injuries, and we'll get to Cole Ragans, just at least call. I know he's not, being ruled out for months or anything like that, that we're hoping it's not too bad and they caught it and everything. And he's battled this before. But I do think it does speak to just that they are kind of on the razor's edge, right? Like that offense, the inability to score runs does point out that they're going to have to win these games 2-0. They're going to have to find a way to get some runs. And I think Vinny Pasquantino putting a good swing on a good pitcher, that's important. That's big. I do think we've both said we think Vinny is the kind of hitter he's going to come around. I heard him in his post-game interview yesterday where he's like, it's clear somebody had been telling him, like, dude, lay off yourself. Give yourself a break, because he mentioned it in his interview with Joel after the game, when I could finally get to and find it on FanDuel's app, by the way. Just a quick sidebar. I don't know why we can't roll from game right into the post game, why I have to hunt around on the FanDuel app and to find the post game. But anyway, just a small bitch. I eventually found it. But, and I was like, that is him. He talked about it when he was on with us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. And he, you could tell that he puts immense time, energy, and effort into turning over every stone and working on anything he can possibly work on to be better, which you love, you appreciate, right? That's what you want in a ball player. But you also know he is susceptible to getting lost in that quest and maybe losing sight of the big thing being the big thing. Just put a good swing on, man. You've got natural ability. You've got the wrists. You've got bat speed. He's working his ass off hours and hours and hours trying to get 2% better. And sometimes you get off track doing that. And so I think it is a good sign. I do think he's going to come around. I think that will be a big part of helping the offense. We've talked about the expected data on Salvador Perez is way better than what the results are.
And now the results are coming around.
And it was great. I think Sam McDowell was the first one to point that out to me, and on his segment when he comes on the program, my radio show. And I thought that was, that made me feel better, that if those two start to click, then I do think this will look immensely better, right? I do think that all of a sudden a lot of our, are they going to be the best offense in baseball? No, but they'll get back to being what they were for 5 or 6 months last year, which was an offense that was more than enough with the kind of pitching that they were getting. Now, the question is, I think we both agree that the offense needs to take a step forward. That's where the Jonathan India piece was supposed to come in. Jonathan India was supposed to help the leadoff spot, which was supposed to then elevate the offense even beyond what they were, so that we could handle, looking at a ball club that took the expected regression on pitching. So is it schedule driven? Yeah, I think it is. But can they use the schedule as a bridge to just being a better team on the other end? Does the schedule allow them? And, of course, Vinny Pasquantino gets the hit off the guy who can really go against the best competition. Not, like what you hope is the Rockies come to town, you beat up on a bad team, everyone's confidence soars, and they carry that forward, right? That's the hope. They're not doing it. They're not scoring against the Astros as we sit here 2 games into it, but hopefully it will. But I will say this, we talk about the schedule. I mean, now all of a sudden with the way things are playing, they're still very much in the midst of a stretch of games that are very winnable. They've got one more against Houston today as we record on Sunday. They've got 3 at Tampa. Tampa, they went on and won, right? They're 14-14. I forgot to update this. I was doing
it says here 13-14.
Well, are you looking at my thing?
No, I'm looking at the baseball reference.
Okay, so I did get it updated. I couldn't remember if I had their final record or not. But anyway, Tampa's 13-14 because I have question marks next to it. I guess I had updated it. Baltimore 10-16, 3 with them, 4 with the White Sox, 7-20, 3 with Boston, who is now down to 15-14. Right, the Red Sox aren't. Early on they came out of the gates looking like, but they're now kind of falling back to more of what maybe people expected them to be. Then they go to Houston for 3, 13-13, and then the Cardinals come to town for 3. They're 12-15. So we're talking about, a collective overall record that's well below 500. 7-20 from the White Sox drags that down, but Baltimore is not really getting it going as of yet. There's a lot of consternation going on down there in Baltimore about whatever's wrong with the Orioles. So if it is schedule driven, they've got a chance to keep milking that teat and use the schedule to hopefully, build some cushion to be able to, and use this time against teams that are not world beaters to try to actually truly find the rhythm of being the best team they can be.
Absolutely. And it's not just that the teams are playing coming up are, not necessarily doing well. You mentioned like the Orioles being a huge disappointment. It's entirely on the pitching side. Like they have, I think they've given up the 3rd most runs in all of baseball. The Red Sox, you mentioned 15-14. The Red Sox are what? They're like top 10 in runs scored. 6th, but on runs allowed, they're one of the worst pitching staffs again. So it's like they're going to face even the competitive teams they're going to face over the next 2 weeks have lousy pitching staffs. In fact, the Astros are kind of the exception, and that and Hunter Brown today is having a very good season as well. So you probably don't want to be too down on them only scoring 4 runs in these 2 games, especially since they won. But like they're going to get some tasty pitching staffs over the next couple weeks. This is an opportunity for the offense to finally get right. They absolutely need to get right. Let me put it this way: I think it's easy to lose sight of just how bad the offense has been. The team as a whole, the entire offense, the position players, let's put it that way, because it includes defense, is below replacement value. They have a negative 0.5 wins above replacement on the offensive side of the board, on the position players side of the board, collectively, which is more amazing when you consider Bobby Witt is by himself worth 1.5 wins. Like he's on a pace for an 8.5 to 9 win season, coming off a 9.5 to 10 win season last year. Like, I know his numbers are down a little bit, but it's just a little bit. Like Bobby Witt for the 2nd year in a row is really the only thing that's keeping this team from abject mediocrity, because this offense is below replacement value with him. It's bad. Like it's just, I mean, everybody knows how bad Hunter Renfroe is. He's 1.2 wins below replacement. He's barely worse than Michael Massey has been this year. Michael Massey's been a full win below replacement in a month. Right, like this is a collective disaster. This is not 1 or 2 players just bringing things down, and that's why it's going to be difficult to fix. But you do hope that a lot of the problem has just simply been they've seen all the teams with good pitching staff so far, and they're about to get a stretch against teams with bad pitching staffs.
Yeah, no, I agree, and this is at least reason to get optimistic, right? Can this pitching hold up? That's one of the big questions. We'll tackle that question next. First, hear from our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. you can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, how about the pitching? We mentioned it, winning these 2 games against the Astros, you're winning 2-0, 2-0, right? That they're pitching. The Astros haven't been a very good hitting club. Even their biggest bat has been completely silent to get things started basically this year. Can this pitching hold up?
You wouldn't think so. And yet, we could have said that all of last year. This rotation is like the he can't keep getting away with it meme come to life. It's like you can't keep getting away with winning with the same 5 guys taking the mound every single day, especially since this year they replaced 2 of the 5 guys. They replaced Alec Marsh with Michael Lorenz, and they replaced Brady Singer with Chris Bubich. And yet once again, they're taking every turn in the rotation. And we'll see about Cole Ragans. We feared the worst when he came out of the game. First off, we weren't sure it was his groin. His velocity was down like a mile and a half in the game. But turned out, this is groin. Okay, I'll take that. And then they didn't put him on the injured list yet. Which at this point you have to think they're at least hoping he can make his next start. Look, I would not be the end of the world if they decide, let's just give him 2 weeks to heal. Let's bring up Noah Cameron for a starter to see what he could do and go back to Cole in 2 weeks. But I have faith in this training staff. If they feel like he can take the mound and not do more damage to it in 3 days, great.
It is concerning though. I mean, we can add the Cole Ragans layer into this. I mean,
sure,
because that is, and I know he has not been the dominant guy. It's been Chris Bubich, and that helps. And if Chris Bubich can keep doing what he's doing or close to it, if Chris Bubich is going to be top 5 in ERA this year and is going to consistently give them 6 innings, then yes, then they're going to be okay. But we just expect Chris Bubich to be good. Cole Ragans has proven he's got more of a track record to feel like he can be an ace, which I think you need that stopper. And right. I do worry. This is a crime. They have not solved the riddle of whatever this is, right? So.
I mean, I don't think they have, but at the same time, they're doing some simple things, which is, with the exception of Cole Ragans, they don't rely on guys with elite velocity. And I think that's so, finding a guy who can be an elite pitcher, elite performance without elite velocity is really a very underrated way of mitigating risk. Because look, peak Jacob deGrom's amazing, but peak Jacob deGrom would get hurt. You're always holding your breath. And every pitcher, you say, the Cole Ragans thing has to be cause for concern. Absolutely. But every pitcher is 1 pitch away from concern. To me, it wasn't even so much that it adds to the level of concern. It's just kind of reminds you of how fragile a rotation can be. And hopefully makes us, appreciate the fact that they've been able to stay 95% healthy here for the last year and change now. Even more. Yeah, it can all come falling apart. I mean, if Ragans goes out for a month and then suddenly, somebody gets hit by a line or Bubich gets hit by a line drive, it's like, shit, we're in trouble. This could go south very, very quickly. And the Bubich thing is particularly precarious because this is his first time starting, being a full-time starter in 3 years now. And he's come back from Tommy John. And it's can he hold up for a full season? I would be much more concerned if it were not for the fact that they handled Seth Lugo so well last year, getting him to almost, to 200 innings, 201 innings without him missing a beat. I have faith that they can be smart about getting Chris Bubich to the finish line. But yes, it can all go south. As long as it doesn't, though, they are in every game. And that's a fun thing there. You don't have to write off 20% of the games because you've got some nobody they just called up from AAA filling in and hoping that the offense scores 8 runs when this offense hasn't scored 8 runs since March, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I think it's why it's key for guys like Noah Cameron to be on the way up so that they can absorb an injury. By the way, I forgot to look this up. He went 2 innings the other day. I assume there was a weather delay and they just didn't bring him back because there was rain in the area. There's been rainouts, I think, in a number of the different spots. So I'm assuming it was just that's the only reason he went 2 innings. I apologize. I meant to look that up this morning. And
I believe you are right. I know there's been a lot of rain. I checked because Jack Caglianone only had 2 plate appearances yesterday. I was worried, but that game was suspended in the 4th inning in Double A.
So I know there's been rain for the last few days all over, right? So there's some of the games, but it's important for him to keep coming along. One of the reasons why I think that there is another reason, in addition to I think they've got some arms down low that can come up and supplement anybody who gets hurt. But the other thing is Brian Sweeney. Let's mention him real quick. They have one of the better pitching coaches in baseball. And he is making guys better when they get to the Royals. So whatever you've been, when you get here, you've got excellent tutelage. He and all the guys in the coaching staff on the pitching side do a great job. So I think you can feel real good that they're going to maintain or get better. So I think that's important. I want to note that real quick.
Well, speaking of getting guys better, I just want a quick shout out. Steven Cruz just keeps working his way up the circle of trust, right? 6 2/3 innings this year, no hits allowed. Now, that's not the first time we've seen something like that because literally 2 years ago, Austin Cox set the all-time major league record for most hitless innings to start a career under Brian Sweeney, mind you. That was in 2023. But Steven Cruz, like with Hunter Harvey out, having another reliable guy to throw the 6th and 7th innings, like I felt like I was his biggest fan. I was hoping he'd contribute, but I mean, I didn't expect in April that he would move into a kind of a key role here. And once Hunter Harvey comes back, I think Chris Stratton is pretty much out of excuses. Like I don't think you can send Steven Cruz down after the way he's been pitching. So, but just yet, like you said, another feather in the cap for Brian Sweeney and Zach Bove, and just kind of the whole pitching machine that they have quietly put together here.
Well, and you kind of led off with where I was going next, and that is the bullpen. Like the bullpen is a true strength, right? It's there for a little while. It's like, well, we got 3 guys. Then it was like, well, look, Lynch. Okay, there's 4 guys. Now, the depth is starting to be there. They're pitching well even when they don't have Lucas Erceg going on the mound. Carlos Estevez has only had the 1 problem game, and he was pretty close to that, even getting out that night with it. And I think the fact that the bullpen has got some depth and has been so good, you don't have to push the starters. We're not watching Ned Yost have to sit and explain why he sent so-and-so back out to start the 8th. Like they're managing the team the way it should be managed, managing the starters the way they're being managed. So you can feel like, that they don't have to weigh down the starting pitching. I think there's reason to believe that, that can continue because we watched them get better last year. So what's the bullpen going to look like if they get, take a step forward in the second half this year?
Right. I mean, that's the big, to me, that's the big improvement between this year and last year this time, right? I mean, by the time they got to the postseason, the bullpen was mostly fixed. But I mean, the bullpen was a problem for the first 4 months. It's not a problem at the moment. It is, like you said, it's a strength, and it has more than made up for any regression we've had in the rotation. I mean, the rotation's still been very good, probably not quite as good as it was last year, but you combine the two, the Royals are 5th in the major leagues in fewest runs allowed. Last year, they were 6th. They have shown no regression as a whole because the bullpen has taken a step forward. And that was the one area of the pitching staff we thought there could be some improvement. But to their credit, it's been, it's been good. And keep in mind, I mean, those numbers are brought down, a lot by Chris Stratton and Sam Long giving up 23 runs in 17 innings. And one of those guys is not on the roster anymore. And the other one is pitching purely garbage innings and is probably not long for the roster if he doesn't turn it around as well. So, like, the bullpen should be a strength the rest of the season. Whether or not it gets better, I mean, it would be nice, but like, it doesn't have to get much better. You just eliminate the bottom end. If the guys who are pitching will continue to pitch well, Hunter Harvey stays healthy, this is going to be a top 10 bullpen in the major leagues this year.
Yeah, no, and I think, that is the biggest reason for optimism is that they are now adding that repertoire as fast as they did. And, you also means you don't have to go out and shop for it.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
you can use any resources that you want, out there trying to get a bat.
Well,
So,
especially after they spent, quite a few resources at the trading deadline last year to bring in Ursig and Harvey.
yeah.
It would be nice to not have to give up, 3 or 4 top 10 prospect talents plus the draft pick like they did last year.
Yeah, it sounds funny saying it, and Seth Lugo was dominant again, looked like last year's self. And it sounds funny, but it was only the Astros, right? But it was only the Astros, but it does look like he may be getting back. We all expect a little bit of a regression, but when you see that game, you're like, okay, he's still rock solid. And that makes you feel really good. We are a month in now. Do we feel like we know any more who should be at second, third, left, right? Or is this going to be what we watch all year?
Well, as you might have figured out from the fact that they have the worst offense in baseball. No, I don't think they've solved a lot of issues. There are probably more questions than answers at this point. And to me, I mean, the linchpin of all of this is the thing I really, maybe I should have accounted for and didn't. But the thing that really disappoints me the most is that Michael Massey is lost. Now, I will say he was equally, if not more, lost last April. Like, go back and remember, refresh yourself. Last April, Michael Massey was beyond awful. I think he had like no walks in like 25 strikeouts to start the year, and then figured it out and was, a productive player the rest of the season. And that was quietly a very big component of the Royals, going to the playoffs. So he might figure things out again, but it's not pretty so far. And with him not hitting, the one thing I thought was locked up, which is who plays second base, everything is in question now, right? I think, the flip side of that is Maikel Garcia has proven he has to be in the lineup every day. Where, I don't know. And to his credit, he's proven he can play pretty much anywhere, including right field and center field. And that's huge, right? So at this point, when you're trying to figure out between second, third, left, and right, who plays on any given day, you start with Maikel Garcia. Right. And then you fill in around him. Right now, I mean, Jonathan India has to be in the lineup. And then, Drew Waters, at this point, I think Drew Waters needs to be in the lineup every day, if only so that he can get everyday playing time to prove to us what he is, at least for the next couple of weeks. So if you have those 3 guys in, and I think Michael Massey's going to come around, I would still have all 4 of those guys in the lineup. On days when you're facing a lefty, maybe you have Maikel Garcia in center instead of Isbel, and then you can play Renfroe if you want against lefties, and you're playing him very sparingly. But to me, you have to have Maikel Garcia, you have to have Jonathan India, and you should have Drew Waters and Michael Massey. So, everything else you fill in around that.
Yeah. But there is still the belief that it's going to get better. Right?
Is it a belief, or is it it's a belief? Is it evidence-based or is it faith-based at this point?
I believe in Vinny Pasquantino. I believe in the math around Salvador Perez, and I think those are the 2 biggest and most important things. Like Michael Massey, more hope than belief, just because the track record's not as big. But I mean, do you believe in Maikel Garcia? He's had the at-bats where this would be time for him to mature. Do you believe that this is going to be who he is?
I mean, I believe that there's a very good chance. Like, I believe he absolutely deserves to play every day. And at this point, he has to prove that he's not capable of being a good hitter, because I've seen enough to say that this guy, the exit velocities have always been there. He's still very young. He's 20, 25. I think he just turned 25 like a month ago. So I absolutely believe Maikel Garcia is one of the, I guess, at least 5 best hitters on the team right now. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. He has to be in the lineup. But you're right. I mean, I'm not sure about some of these other guys, and I do think though that
one more guy I believe in, India. I mean, Tyler put it, on there. He's like, India needs to have a set position. Listen, you know what? The drum I beat, like, his offense cannot suffer. You can put him wherever you want as long as, and his offense is suffering. So I am irritated, and I would agree with Tyler. Let's try playing him someplace where he's comfortable. Find out where he's comfortable and get that back going. But I believe in him too. I believe that will come together unless they stubbornly keep running him around in other spots and I don't know that one's connected to the other, but you can't prove to me it's not. Right. So, but I think he's going to hit, and that's going to make this offense better as well.
Yeah, no, I'm coming around to that position. Like, getting his bat going is too important to mess around with multiple positions if you believe that that's what's affecting him. Obviously, they know what's going on exactly in the clubhouse. Does he need a set position? And if so, what position should that be? But if they come to the conclusion that, he needs to be the starting everyday third baseman, and that means moving Michael Garcia around, a month ago I would have said no, thank you. At this point, I have faith in Michael Garcia. He'll be able to hit enough to be productive wherever you put him. I would be fine with that if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, I wouldn't make any drastic decisions for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks. This part of the schedule we're talking about should be a tonic for some of these guys, right? And my hope is some of these guys, they start hitting against worse pitching over the next 2 or 3 weeks. The guys who don't, then you can really start to hone in on them in a couple of weeks, right? The only thing I would say now is that Hunter Renfroe needs to be used very sparingly, and that's why you have Drew Waters on the roster now.
Right, which we'll get into him. We'll get into the Bobby Witt Jr. hitting streak after you hear from our friends at Whataburger. Your favorites are back, Kansas City, now for a limited time at all your KC Whataburger locations. Get the mushroom and Swiss burger, 2 large beef patties, Swiss American cheese, fire-roasted mushrooms, and creamy au jus. How about the sweet and spicy bacon burger? 2 large beef patties, American and Monterey Jack cheese, bacon, grilled onions, and topped with sweet and spicy pepper sauce. Or grab the patty melt, even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. They're all perfect with the Whataburger Banana Pudding Shake. Remember, Whataburger's open 24 hours a day with breakfast served from 11 p to 11 a. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Kaufman Corner podcast. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. All right, let's talk about this Bobby Witt hit streak, Rany. 18. Are we going to be talking about history the next time we chat here in a week?
So, I never predict history when it comes to hitting streaks because they are so deceptively, easy to break, right? You think, what's one hit in a game? And the thing about Bobby Witt that makes it so enticing is that his speed is such that any ball he makes contact on, certainly any ground ball to the left side, is a potential infield single. And there have been multiple games in this streak where he just beat out an infield single, right? So you take a guy who makes above average contact, obviously hard contact, so he's spraying line drives all over the field, but then can just luck into an infield single. You can think, how hard can it be to get a hit?
Let's also throw in the fact that he doesn't walk a ton, so he's going to be swinging the bat.
Right. He's walking more than he used to, but he's not an extreme walker. This is not Jonathan India. And he, of course,
Ted Williams was never going to chase Joe DiMaggio's.
Right. Not on the hitting streak side. The on-base streak, yes. In fact, I think he might hold the longest on-base streak. And I wish that would become more of a thing. But hit streaks it is. But Bobby also batting second, and even though the lineup's not good, he gets a lot of plate appearances. He's averaging almost 4.5 plate appearances per game this year, right around 4 at bats. So obviously, the more at bats you get, the more likely you are to get a hit. So he's at 18, right? Doesn't sound like much. I was surprised by this. He's already he's basically one of only 21 players in Royals history with an 18-game hitting streak. I would have thought there would have been a lot more that got to 18. Only 8 times in Royals history has a guy had a 20-game hitting streak. That's already rarefied air if he gets hits in 2 more games in a row. And then the record, depending on how you look at it, George Brett had a 30-game hitting streak back in 1980. But, it's easy to forget. Whit Merrifield had a 31-game hitting streak wrapped around 2 seasons. Then the official record-keeping rules in baseball are such that hitting streaks do not extend to a new year. I don't know why that would be the case. I think a hitting streak is a hitting streak and doesn't matter if the season ends. But so either way, it's 30 or 31. He's at 18 right now. So let's put it this way. How likely is it that we will be talking about this on next week's show? Because if we're still talking about this next week, we're getting at 25 games. And we're talking about tied for fourth longest in Royals history.
Do you want me to do some math?
No, I've done it. Don't worry.
Okay.
The key is first off, how likely is a player like Bobby Witt to get a hit in a game, right? What's the percentage chance? At least one hit. So I did the math. Very simple. I just looked how many since the start of last year. All right, he won the batting title last year at 332. He's hitting 318 right now. So basically the same. How many times has he gotten a hit in the games he's played this year? I mean, obviously he's on this hitting streak. He's gotten hits in 26 out of 28 games this year, which is a phenomenal ratio. Like Ichiro at his best, I don't think he was doing 26 out of 28. Last year it was 128 out of 161. You put them together, he's gotten a hit in 81.5% of the games he's played. It's a little over 4 out of 5. Then, I mean, 80% is an excellent ratio. 80% of the time you're getting at least one hit. You're only going hitless 1 in every 5 games. That's terrific. But if you do the math, the odds of him getting a hit in 7 more games in a row to get to 25 is 23.8%. So about 1 in 4 chance. Not high, but not nothing either. 25% chance. And if he gets to 25, then we start talking about some major history being made. The odds that he gets a hit in 13 consecutive games to get to 31 and break the official record tie, the real record, is 7%. So again, I think it's something we should at least acknowledge because it's Bobby Witt. And
if we took it, what's the likelihood that he breaks it at some point?
And his entire career?
Yeah.
That's going to take a lot of math. I will work if you want. Maybe I'll come back to that for next.
I'll bet it would be somewhere in the neighborhood. You can't just say, well, he's going to play in his prime for 10 more years. So 7% times 10, let's take it to 70%. It's harder than you, like you said, it's harder than you think, but he's going to put 20 something up there. Like I said, the combination of his bat to ball skill, plus the fact that there's not going to be a day where he goes 0 for 2 with 3 walks.
Right.
Like, that part of the equation's taken out. Probably pretty good. He's going to chase this mark at some point.
What is I think important to note is that very small changes in that 81.5% of the games you get a hit in, very small changes to that number would lead to very drastic changes in the odds of a hitting streak. Because when you compound a 1% change over 20, 25, 30 games, it can make a huge difference. Like that assumption of 81.5%, if it's 80% instead of 81.5%, the odds would go way down and vice versa. It's interesting, just looking at like examples from Royals history, George Brett, you talk about a guy who's tailor-made for a hitting streak, right? Obviously George Brett, he had a 30 gamer and he also had a 25 gamer in 1982. Actually, that was a 2 season, 82 and 83. Willie Wilson, who never walked, right, and led off, was getting tons of at-bats. In fact, set the all-time major league record for at-bats in a season in 1980, right? Never had a hitting streak longer than 18 games, which is where Bobby is right now, right? So even with a guy who was tailor-made to get at least one, and talk about infield singles, with Willie, everything was a potential infield single. Even with all of that, he never got past 18. So those are, it's kind of instructive to look at those examples. But Bobby, the interesting is normally being right-handed is not an advantage here. Left-handed hitters have the vast majority of batting titles because when you have the platoon advantage, against the majority of pitchers, you're more likely to have a higher batting average. And obviously Bobby bucked that trend last year with the batting title. But the thing is, when you're right-handed and you have tremendous speed, and you're a pull hitter, like you're not a slap hitter, right? So Bob, what happens? You pull balls to the ground balls to your pull side. For a left hitter, that's very hard to beat out an infield single. You can do it, but it's very hard to do it to the right side of the infield. To the left side of the infield, any ball that's on the ground that gets past the pitcher on the left-hand side, you have to play it perfectly or he could beat it out. So he has that advantage. So yeah, you make a good point. Like, if he stays as a 320, 330 hitter for the next 6 years while he's under club control, the odds of him getting to at least 25 games has to be considered pretty high.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it'll be fun. I hope we get there. I hope
Yeah.
we're talking about it. I mean, he's such a great player that we're going to be, these are the kind of things that make it exciting to have great players. Not only is Jeff Passan writing about him being the most exciting player in baseball and it gets you on national TV and wanting to see your teams, but just as a fan, for if you're, if you were a kid when George Brett was playing like you and I, the ability to sit down with a son or daughter who loves the Royals and have that shared experience of watching him. That's part of what that Royals lore was. They only won one championship with George Brett, but there was all the playoff, stuff. But then there was the chase for 400 and all those, the All-Star games. And of course we lost every All-Star game as American League fans back then, but it was still great to see our guys, being announced at the All-Star game. These are the things that make it really cool, and do just speak to the greatness of Bobby Witt Jr. How much do they believe that, Drew Waters is the answer? How much do they believe? How much do you believe?
So it depends on the question, right? Like if the question is Drew Waters a long-term solution in right field? I think the answer is no. If the question is, does Drew Waters being in the Royals lineup in April of 2025 make them a better team than the alternatives? I think the answer is yes. Right? He is so far. He's been exactly what I was sort of, advocating for him. My rationale for making a case for him was not that he was a great player or even a good player or even really average. I think he's been average-ish, let's say, right? I mean, his numbers is 49 plate appearances. He has an OPS of 123. I don't think that's anything close to what he probably is. He's a 100 OPS guy, maybe. Right? And his defense, it's not great. It's not bad. He started in center field, like yesterday, the day before. Hunter Renfroe is not starting in center field. All right, so he might be below average, but he's definitely above replacement value. And right now, that's all that really matters. So, and he's 26 years old. I mean, look, if you believe in MJ Melendez still, and they do, I don't understand why you would write off a guy who's younger than him.
Hang on just real quick. Do you really think they do believe in MJ Melendez? Do you believe in MJ Melendez?
I have very severe reservations about MJ.
I believe in MJ Melendez that he can't play. That's what I believe in MJ Melendez. And I'm sorry. There is nothing. I mean, that is old school Dayton Moore. We're just never giving up on our guy. If you are still of that mindset, how could you possibly? And what's kind of amazing to me is Dayton Moore went out of his way to point out that the trade for Drew Waters, that JJ Picola was kind of the guy driving the bus on that. Right? He made a point like, JJ.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, oh, okay. Now was it just, hey, I'm showing that JJ really is the GM? Was he feeling pressure? Stop making all the decisions. We put JJ in this spot because we're trying to make it work with you and JJ. And in John Sherman's head, was there some kind of conversation that I don't want to have to fire you, Dayton? But I want JJ's ideas. And was this him? Was he selling JJ out? Was he trying to? I don't know why he said it, but he definitely made it clear when they made this deal that absolutely. It was JJ driving it. So the fact that JJ Picola's in charge, you would think that this would be his type of player. It's definitely Dayton's type of player, more athletic, although I think the athleticism was oversold at the time of the trade. But a guy who can play center field, playing in a corner outfield. Oh, that's what we want. That great athleticism, all this defense, everything. Guy who can go first to third, a guy who can take an extra base. It seems like I guess I don't understand why there would be any more belief, in MJ Melendez than there is in Drew Waters. I understand there's reasons for why they haven't brought Drew Waters up, batted balled it. I don't understand why you wouldn't be like, this is Drew Waters' job the rest of the year. You lived with MJ Melendez batting below 200 most of the year last year. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with this guy who's a better outfielder? It's staggering to me.
Right. Exactly. I mean, look, do they believe in MJ Melendez? I don't know. What I know is they started the year with him as their everyday left fielder, right? On opening day. And they didn't really do anything on the offseason to challenge him for that job. You know what I mean? Like
they tried,
but clearly not hard enough. I mean, the point is, if they believed in him enough to give him a starting job on opening day, right? And my point is, if they're willing to do that for him, it's hard to argue that you would do that and then not give Drew Waters a month to prove what he can do.
I know you know this, but as fans, we look at, I think we've said this many times, the NFL rules the mindset of the American sports fan. And so there's a feeling that, an NFL team set sail on opening day, that's the team they want to be playing for 17 games if they get their whim. That's not baseball. They set sail knowing that the cargo on the ship is going to change, right? And so I think the idea that because he started on opening day, that means they believe he's the best guy for the job. I think it may have been as easy as, because the returns were not good in spring training. So I think it may have been as easy as, here's your last chance. Like, we're going to give it to you. We're going to give you X amount of time, and then that's it. So, yeah, I think you may be right. I'm bringing all this up so much, more so trying to convince the Royals than I am I'm not trying to argue your point. Your points are all valid.
What are you trying to convince the Royals of? To give Drew Waters the same opportunity they gave MJ Melendez?
To move on from MJ Melendez and then learn from MJ Melendez, right? Learn that, like, if you're in such, first of all, figure out why it didn't work. Why did he hit 40 home runs in AA and he's never come close to having that kind of success again, right? Because seemingly that card has been what has made Alex Zumwalt an untouchable. And there are positives from Alex Zumwalt. I will agree. I'm when we brought up, but if you're going to run MJ Melendez out there, then you believe in the player, then that means somebody talking, we can go, all the dominoes that start to fall. But you have to learn from MJ Melendez as to why it hasn't worked. And where was the sign long ago that he should have never been given the everyday spot in the outfield? Where was it? Where are those signs that you missed? Right. And so, what is it? How much better is the batted ball data on? I mean, get the analytics department figuring out, okay, we're valuing the wrong numbers because we have some numbers that say keep running this guy out here and he doesn't hit. So let's change which numbers we value. When we get a guy who, showed some pop in AA, but we really don't think can catch, let's go ahead and trade him because the position change has not worked. Okay. Let's stop kidding ourselves when we think a guy's a good catcher. People said he was an everyday major league catcher. First thing they did when the new regime came in and said, that's over. We're done with this crap.
Right. The one thing I was going to say in JJ's defense is, like, the lessons, the main lessons they should have started learning when Dayton was still in charge. Like, these lessons go back
100%,
years.
100%. But if you keep running him out there, then it's on you then. So, yeah, I'm look, that to me is, they're doing so many things right. And they're getting it right with starting pitching, and they're getting it right in trades, and they're getting it right in free agency, and they're getting it right with the bullpen. I mean, this is the one, and Michael Massey's going to add his name to this list if he doesn't come around, and then we can start talking about Alex Zumwalt as well. I mean, on that front, but yeah, they're doing so much right. I don't like having a sore that's there for everybody in the comment section to pick every week we do this podcast,
Well, the one thing you mentioned this, you want them to learn this. I want them to learn the lesson from the Hunter Renfroe experiment. Like, don't sign 32, 33-year-old, outfielders with old player skills whose defense is already on, it's like, those are the guys you have to avoid in free agency. So, I think they've certainly learned
to avoid that. What they need to do is they need to identify a guy like Drew Waters who's at least a replacement level player.
Exactly,
but put him in and live with him.
I'm pretty sure they already had Drew Waters when they signed Hunter. That's the thing that's kind of
troubling. Yes, but they seemingly are still at a point where they, they believe more in Hunter Renfroe, at the tail end of his career, being able to prop it up and be the better part of Hunter Renfroe than what he'd been the last couple of years of his career than they did Drew Waters. Why?
Right. Exactly. And
that's the broken part.
That's what I want them to take a good hard look at. They had Drew Waters in 2023. He wasn't great. He had, an 84 OPS plus, and he was worth 0.6 wins above replacement in about a half season of playing time. They went out and signed Hunter Renfroe to basically replace Drew Waters. And Hunter Renfroe has been worse in every way, shape, or form. And they are now going back to Drew Waters, who spent the last year and change in AAA, to replace him. So there is a lesson to be learned there. I hope they do.
Yeah, I do as well. So do you believe in Drew Waters?
I believe right now he is
Okay.
the best, if not everyday, most everyday option for the Royals in right field. You might play him in left or whatever. Fine. He should be in the lineup 80% of the time for the next month, and then we can talk again.
All right. Has Jack Caglianone's ETA changed? They're playing him in the outfield. It seemed like they wanted to get him going in a spot he's comfortable, which the fact that they didn't put him in the outfield right away is even somewhat telling. Why wasn't he? I mean, the quickest, fastest path to the big leagues was going to be the outfield. Why wasn't the outfield mitt on this whole time? Well, we wanted to get him going. So then we are admitting that where you play a guy can screw up his hit. We're also admitting that his hitting is the most important part. So we wanted to feel good about the hitting before we drop this on him. So is my logic correct on that?
I do, but I also think
I just want to establish that.
I just feel like I think his ETA has moved up in part because of. I think they went into the season not really expecting that he would be an option for the everyday lineup this year.
It was everywhere. Everybody was reporting that they were talking about him playing outfield. Everybody. This didn't just happen.
This is true. I mean, to me, so obviously the fact that they put him in right field, that was a a red letter moment. I think I texted you. I don't text you about the balls he hits all the time, but I texted you when he started in right field.
Well, I actually got word about it a number of hours before that. Like, hey, by the way, this is coming today.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay.
I'll tell you what it annoys
me out there, but.
Well, to me, it's exciting because it means, look, they, no battle plans survives contact with the enemy, and no strategy for an entire season you can't get through an entire season without changing your strategy on some level. And the Royals have looked at what's going on in their outfield right now. They're looking at Jack Caglianone and they're like, yeah, he's not a 10-year solution in right field, but can he help us this season in right field? And this move tells me they've come to the conclusion that potentially yes. What annoys me is they put him in right field on Thursday. Then he went back to first base on Friday. And then he was back in right field yesterday. Like, if you're doing this, guys, let's let him play out there every day. Like, let's see what he can do in right field every day for a month. And then
why do you think they did go back and forth?
I think, every minor league team has the struggle of trying to give playing time. You're trying to develop so many prospects at once, and you're trying to develop them on defense as well as offense. You see it more at the lower levels, but like, teams are constantly moving guys around just so that everybody gets an opportunity to prove where they can and cannot play. That would be my assumption. My argument in response is you have to design your strategy around your best prospects. Right now, Jack Caglianone gets priority, and I'm sorry if you're another guy who wants to play some right field for the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. You're just going to have to eat it right now because we need Jack Caglianone out there every day.
I mean, my thoughts on this. I hate it.
I know.
I knew it was,
I like it.
But again, Jonathan India is not hitting. Right? They've messed around with Michael Massey. He's not hitting. Like,
yeah, but I mean, if it's just
by
a
the way,
matter
wasn't he was 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts yesterday, wasn't he? Before that,
Caglianone? No, he doubled. He had a double and a non-strikeout. 1 for 2, no whiffs, a double. And,
that's right. What was he was 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts in the first game.
The first time he was out there, but one game, and his strikeout rate is still very nice, 23% or so. I'm good with that. We'll see. I mean, it's been 2 games in right field. We need to see him out there for at least 20 more before we can really make any kind of assumptions with him.
Well, he is pacing for, like, if he would play a big league season, let's see.
I mean, the thing I'm really quite impressed with is he has 10 walks in 94 plate appearances.
He would have 185 strikeouts in the big leagues if he played 160 games at his current strikeout rate.
He would, but
you would expect that number to go up.
Yeah, but keep in mind that offense down in AA is so good that he's averaging 4.7 plate appearances a game. So, in other words, he would strike out 200 times, but that would be literally in like 750 plate appearances. Like, that would be a massive amount of plate appearances at the major league level. So it's the strike. That's why I look at strikeout rate. Like, if he plays,
well, it's still. Let's just be clear. It's It's a
A lot of strikeouts. But I mean, guys used to be, 200 strikeouts was just an absolute no in the major leagues, to the point where, was it the Pirates who sat the home run leader, Jose Hernandez, when he was like leading the majors in home runs on the last game of the season because he was sitting at 199 strikeouts, right? Like, it used to be just an absolute taboo. Now,
Yeah.
Mark Reynolds broke the seal. Now it's like, if you strike out 200 times, but you hit 45 home runs, that's fine. And
Agreed.
Caglianone is a rare guy who could do that.
I am on board. I agree. And let me recognize a couple things that are here. I mean, Kid Dynamite says he has an Armas, Evans, Parker, Tony Armas, Dwight Evans, Dave Parker arm. There's no way he shouldn't be tried in right field. There is a way. It's called, he weighs way more than those guys. He's way bigger. And it's a different era. I mean, he was drafted to hit and solve the hitting issue, solve the ball over the wall. So if he doesn't, I mean, and he said tried. So I do understand. That is the hope, is that the cannon for the arm is there. And I want to be clear. Kid Dynamite says tried. And, okay. I still don't like it. I would have him play where he's comfortable, but there is soundness to the logic that he's putting out there. And then he said, and then this one, Cotman, Gordon was drafted as a third baseman and moved to left field. I'm glad they're doing this in the minors and not the majors, a la MJ. 100%. I don't like this, but if you're going to do it, then yes, let's not have him try to figure out and deal with the stresses of performing at the big league level and getting to know all the guys in the clubhouse and not letting all the big leaguers down and all the crap that comes with that. And then, oh, by the way, here's a new glove. Go figure this out. I'm 100. I will give them credit on that.
Right. And the one thing I do want to say about his defense and his arm, like the knock against Caglianone, weight or no weight, like the results are what matter. And the problem with him being that big is that he's not an elite runner. He's a 40 runner on the 20/80 scale, or he's below average. To which I will say, what do you think Hunter Renfroe's speed is right now? Right? Like, is he slower than Renfroe? No, I don't think so. I do think that means, he's not going to be playing right field in his 30s. He might be, even if he's a below average runner, if he can be a slightly below average in terms of range, I do think the arm can make up a lot of that. And here's the one thing that we haven't mentioned about him and his arm out there, which I really like, and it's really kind of a rare thing. He throws left-handed, right? And that's important because, like, a left-handed thrower who has elite arm strength for right field is quite rare. It's quite rare to see a left-hander who throws well enough to be a above average right fielder, because those guys are usually on the mound. And guess what? Jack Caglianone is absolutely could be on the mound. And for all we're talking about with moving him positions, they're not trying him at pitcher. They've convinced him. Remember, when he was drafted as a two-way player, and maybe that was just a way for them to soften the blow to him that they did not want him doing that. But like, they've managed to convince him to basically give up pitching, focus on hitting, because they do believe that would impede his development. And I agree with that. But a left-handed thrower in right field, you think about like how first base throwing left-handed is such an advantage, because when you throw to the left side of the diamond, to second base, to third base, the throw is much more natural and fast. You have a much faster release when you throw left-handed. For the same reason that throwing to first base, you want to be right-handed, which is why there's literally never been a left-handed throwing second baseman, shortstop, or third baseman in like modern major league history, right? But at first base, you do have right-handed throwers, but left-handed throwers are preferred, even though most of their throws are still to first base when the pitcher's covering, right? And on those throws doesn't help, but it's such an advantage when you're throwing to second or third base. If you're a right fielder, you pick up a ball, a single or whatever, and you guys trying to go first to third, not having to turn your body and square up to throw to third base is going to speed up release time significantly. I think he could be, for that reason alone, the arm could be a massive weapon in right field. So if he's even borderline average in terms of range, I actually think he could add a lot of defensive value with that arm. So that's something to keep in mind.
I'll put this comment says Dave Parker was 6'5", 240. Kid Dynamite says Dave Parker was huge. By the way, Baseball Reference lists him at 6'5", 230. And it's 250 was the numbers we ran on how many guys have actually done it at over 250, which Caglianone is already at this age over 250 pounds. And yes, big people have played the outfield. Adam Dunn played it. I don't think it benefited his career, and he wasn't very good at it. And you mentioned the foot speed. But Dave Parker always played outfield. That's the point. Like he was always an outfielder, like coming up, and literally that matters, right? Like you usually graduate out to the, you know, the lesser running spots, right? Like, you know, Billy Butler was a shortstop when they drafted him, or I mean, he might have moved to third base, but he'd been shortstop in high school. Mike Moustakas was a shortstop, right? You move them away from the wear and tear when they prove to be too big for the spot. I get what everyone's saying. I'm not saying it won't work. It just damn well better, right? Like, because you can't get it wrong with him. He has to hit, and that's the most important part. And hopefully it works, and hopefully it works for a short time, because that's the other part about it. You're doing this because you can't freaking develop an outfielder at all. That has to get fixed. Right. And I'm going to tell you something else. I sat and I looked at the same type of feedback when I said trade MJ Melendez when he hit 40 home runs in AA. And everybody lost their mind. Jeff Passan told me, and Jeff and I kick this around all the time. You don't trade a catcher with that kind of home run potential. Unless he can't catch, unless all your batted ball data says that this isn't real, unless you look at it and go, man, he's hitting all the guys who aren't prospects. 38 of his 41 home runs came against guys that were 27 or older here in AA. They're all the nobodies. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to go back and look, but they were wrong about that. Everybody, like, I get so tired. And somebody was bitching and moaning about it because we were somewhat negative last week. Well, they were playing like shit last week. That's why we were negative, right? And we'll tell you the way they're playing is how we will describe what they're doing. They weren't doing well. They were getting shellacked on the road. Well, but so many people just want to hear what they want to hear. You want to hear that Jack Caglianone is going to be badass in right field and is going to hit 50 home runs and is going to be Dave Parker, is going to be the Cobra. History tells us that's not really the case, right? So I'm just telling you the truth. If you don't like the truth, when they're playing bad, we're going to say they're playing bad. When this is a reach, we're going to say it's a reach. Right? Randy, you gave all the reasons. They're all great reasons. I do like the left-handed part. He does have the arm. There is a reason why this will work. And my hope is what it is it's Miguel Cabrera playing the outfield for the Marlins en route to winning a World Series and then immediately getting him out of the outfield. That's what my hope is.
And frankly, I mean, look, I think we're a lot more aligned on this than it looks like.
Agreed.
I think, I'm not saying he's a right fielder. I'm saying he should be tried in right field because of the unique situation the Royals are in. It's worth the risk right now.
Yes.
But we'll talk about it again in a few weeks. I'm just happy that they're at least trying it, and we'll see where we are in a couple weeks.
And I know nothing's a certain. Like, you draft Jack Caglianone, you feel really good about it, and you're happy, and the early returns are good, and you see the exit velo in Arizona. They're really good. But to go, he's our first baseman, and we're trading Vinny Pasquantino this offseason, would be, it's not a guarantee that you can do. I get it. But I just feel compelled every time it comes up to say, you got a bunch of catchers, trade one for an outfielder. Okay, you had two catchers. You had Salvador Perez. If you'd have traded Salvador Perez for George Springer and paid George Springer a little more than what you're paying Salvador Perez per year, would you have been a better ball club? I mean, like, don't let that, like, Jack Caglianone. And what's really would be great, and I know nobody has a crystal ball, and it's not this exact, but figure out exactly what Jack Caglianone is. Know in your head what he's going to be, and then trade the lesser of the two between him and Vinny Pasquantino. And nobody wants to hear that because we love Vinny. So we want both of them to be there. And you know what the best way is? Because we don't want to fault. It's if one of them could go play the outfield. And nobody wants Vinny to play the outfield. And we haven't seen Jack Caglianone up. And because people wanted Billy Butler to work in the outfield. And he came up here, and we immediately, everybody really, and I know now it's easier because everybody has MILB TV and all these different things now, so it's easier. But you went, you've got to be kidding me. Like, somebody saw this happening in Omaha and went, we're going to continue it all the way to the big leagues.
Now you're making me upset that we didn't have MILB TV when Billy Butler in like 2006. Like, that would have been fun.
Yes.
I wish we had clips of him trying to play like third base. So,
yes. So listen, I hope it works. They are doing it better by making the try down in the minor leagues. But the first and foremost, it's his bat. Jonathan India needs to bat leadoff and needs to do it well. So figure that out. I don't care how you figure it out. And Jack Caglianone needs to hit the ball over the wall, and he needs to do it a lot. So figure out how their hit tools are what you acquired them for. Don't screw those up. Simple as that. I think it's pretty easy. Listen, it's pretty easy to support the Coffin Corner podcast. Just support our great sponsors, like our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Give Dave a call at 816-781-7331. I did. They're helping me out with my insurance. Unbelievable customer service. David Starnes Allstate Insurance for all your insurance needs. Our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. If you've been hurt in an accident, Kansas City's Google, 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. Our Northland Injury Law, serving KC for 40 years. Text HURT to 22222 if you have a case. That's HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222. And, of course, our friends at Whataburger. Breakfast did end. It's open 11p to 11a. Whataburger's open 24 hours. Breakfast served 11p to 11a. Get some lunch. Get the mushroom and Swiss burger. How about the sweet and spicy bacon burger or the patty melt? That's my personal favorite. And even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich and a banana pudding shake at Whataburger, one of our great sponsors here at the Kaufman Corner podcast. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here at Kaufman.